The Street Files. A complete mystery short story. Every Wednesday. File 44. The Death of Archie Blake. Olivia Streete walks into her daughter's bedroom in their flat, near Tower Bridge on the Thames in London. "We have a job, Poppy," she says. "Farringdon are publishers. They just called. I'll make breakfast." 20 minutes later, the 19-year-old appears dressed in the kitchen after a shower, and she sits on a tall chair at a breakfast bar that is positioned to give a view of the river. They eat scrambled egg on toast and drink hot coffee as the sun cuts across the city. The mother and daughter walk to London Bridge Station and take the Thames Link Railway, 3 stops to the shiny new Farringdon station that sits opposite the Victorian one with the same name. This whole area of London has been gentrified over the last decades and is now home to artisan retail outlets and expensive restaurants to replace the dusty past. Brissett Street is huddled into a block of narrow roadways to the east of the stations, and Olivia and Poppy stop halfway down, and automatic glass doors slide open to let them into the reception area of Blake McCain Publishing. The man behind the desk has intense green eyes and no hair, and the women are asked to wait when Olivia tells him why they're here. After only 1 minute, a fair-haired man in his 40s, with blue eyes, appears through the waist-high Perspex security gates and holds out his hand. "Martin Blake," he says. They make their introductions. Then he takes Olivia and Poppy to a glass-sided meeting room on the first floor, which lets everyone nearby see everything you do inside the room. A young man with dark hair appears in the doorway. "Coffees," he says, and Olivia and Poppy nod. "Thanks, Gary," says Martin, and the man walks away, shutting the door behind him. "This place is new," he says. "Only been here a couple of years. Times are changing fast." "On the telephone, Mr. Blake," says Olivia. "You said you needed some legal help?" "Yes, and please call me Martin. It's very relaxed in publishing. Let me tell you about the company," he says. "We've been in existence for 10 years in this form, after Blake Press took over the family-run McCain Books. Blake has always published illustrated factual books for children and adults, and McCain was a general publisher of fiction. So it brought together 2 very different parts of the publishing industry." "Not that different, surely," says Poppy. "Fiction and non-fiction look the same on the shelf, but their gestation is the opposite of each other," says Martin. "Fiction starts with original works by individuals, but non-fiction commissions books from experts, more like television." "And has the amalgamation of the 2 companies been a smooth journey?" says Olivia. "Not at all." He is suddenly blunt. "The McCain family have been difficult. They've never come to terms with being bought out. It's been run by various McCains since the 1920s, so this generation felt as though they'd failed in some way." Gary reappears with 3 white china cups of coffee, places them down on the table, and turns on his heel. When the door closes, Martin says, "He's McCain. I took him on as my assistant to build bridges with the rest of the family." "Apart from Gary, are the McCains involved with the combined business?" says Olivia. "Not officially, but they know many people who are still working here, and they keep on badgering them to rock the boat." "What do you want from us?" says Olivia. "My brother Archie and I were joint CEOs of the company over the last 10 years, but he died 3 weeks ago. He liked fiction, I liked non-fiction. We were opposites, really, reflections of each other." "Did you argue?" says Poppy. He smiles at the memory. "All the time. He wanted the business to drop non-fiction. I could never let that happen. But his death was suspicious in my mind. He was at home on a normal Tuesday evening and his heart just stopped. He was 43. I think he was killed." Martin looks directly at them, expecting a reaction. "He was healthy, jogged every day, didn't drink or take drugs. There's no medical history of heart problems in our family. I want you to find out who killed him." "What did the police say when he died?" says Olivia. Just a normal death. I've got the death certificate and the police incident report. He has a light blue folder in front of him, and he opens it and hands 2 sets of papers to Olivia. She reads the death certificate. Acute myocardial infarction due to atherosclerosis, she says. That's a heart attack due to heart disease. They didn't consider it a suspicious death, he says. No, heart disease is considered natural causes, says Olivia. I think it was a cover-up, says Martin. They got a doctor to lie for them or something. When you say them, says Poppy, you mean the McCain family, do you? Yes, I think they killed Archie so they can take over the business. He drinks from his cup. What about you, though? Says Olivia. You're still running the business. Removing Archie wouldn't stop you running the company, or give them control back of the combined group, would it? It would if I died too, he says. There's a clause in the takeover contract when Blake McCain was formed. The Blake family own and run the company, but the McCains inherit all of our shares if our family line ends. It was a clause put in to finally push the deal over the line. Our lawyer at the time added it, and the McCains signed, so it worked. We never thought it might come about. Have you got children? Says Poppy. I'm single, says Martin. Archie was divorced, but had no kids either. I'm the only Blake still alive. They'll kill me next, and then they'll own it. From the folder, Martin picks up a set of 2 keys. Archie lived and died in a flat along the road. He moved here to be near the business. It was everything to him. He lived and breathed this place. These are the spare keys that he gave me to look after. I haven't touched the flat since he died. He places the keys on the table between them. Olivia takes a breath out. All right, we'll go and have a look. After that, can you arrange for us to meet the McCains? She says. Tamsin and Daniel are the 2 who are active in trying to get their family firm back, he says. I'll ask them to come in. They'll think I'm going to stand down after Archie's death, so they'll be here as fast as you can say takeover. Olivia and Poppy are shown back to reception, and they walk the 50 yards along Brissett Street until they reach a black door that has a solitary nameplate beside it, with one word, Blake, on it, in dark blue letters, under a bell push. Immediately inside the door is a square hallway that is 10 feet on each side, and has a clear glass roof 30 feet above their heads. A flight of ornate stairs clings to the walls as it rises up 2 stories. There are no other rooms off the stairs until they reach the top of the building and an oak door. Olivia pushes the 2nd key into the lock. The apartment is large and bright and painted in cream and ochre. The lounge stretches 30 feet across Italian tiles to plate glass windows, and the walls are lined with shelves, neatly stacked with hundreds of books. Nice place, says Poppy. Publishing obviously pays well. I'm not sure it does, says Olivia. They walk through the rooms and end up at the expansive windows. Beyond the glass are dozens of rooftops, crowding together from different eras of history, all at different angles and in different colours. I thought Martin was slightly obsessed with the McCains, says Poppy. She looks at her mother. The bloke officially died of natural causes. What if we only find that that's the truth? Do we go back and tell him that? Of course, says Olivia. He's seeking an explanation for what might turn out to just be a random event. So what are we looking for in this flat? Martin said it hasn't been touched, and Archie died here, says Olivia. Let's look at the police report. She pulls out the document from her bag. I'll paraphrase, she says as she reads. Archie Blake, found dead at just after 9 in the evening. On that sofa there. They both look at the white 3-seater 10 feet away. The police couldn't find any signs of life, but had called the on-rota doctor. His name was James Reed. He declared the man dead at 10-ish. Heart attack, Natural causes. That's it, really. They called an ambulance to take the body to the funeral directors. No investigation due to the doctor declaring the cause of death as not suspicious. Poppy walked to the sofa. So he was just sitting here and stopped living, she says. She inspects the seat, then kneels down to look underneath. Oh, yuck! What is it? Looks like a tiny snake under there. Olivia joins her and looks too. She gets out her phone and puts on the light to see more. It is a snake, a dead one. Take a photo, can you, Poppy? The teenager photographs the snake and her mother searches for snakes native to the UK on her phone. There are only 3 native British snakes: the grass snake, the smooth snake, and the adder. Only the last one can kill. They look at the photo on Poppy's phone. And that is a grass snake, says Olivia. He didn't die from being bitten by that. Her phone starts to ring, and it's Martin, who says that the McCains are coming into the office and that they're arriving in 10 minutes. When the call ends, Olivia says, "Split up, Poppy, and inspect half the rooms each. We may have to come back and do it in more detail later. But just look initially for anything unusual, anything that doesn't fit with what we know about Archie Blake's life or death." Poppy takes the kitchen and the lounge, while Olivia goes through the 2 bedrooms. 7 minutes later, Olivia calls, "Time's up." They head out and back to the road. "What did you find?" she says, as they walk. "One thing that was odd," says the daughter. "He had dozens of books published by McCain, but hardly any of his own." "Maybe he liked fiction," says Olivia. "The only thing I found was that he had a packed suitcase in one of the bedrooms, as though he was just about to go on a trip." The silent doors slide open as they arrive at the Blake McCain offices. The man on reception has passes for them that he printed out, so they can come and go while they are working for Martin. When Olivia and Poppy reach the top of the stairs, they can see the glass-sided meeting room ahead of them across the floor. Martin is in there with 2 people, a man and a woman. He has dark hair and a deeply tanned face that you only get from prolonged exposure to the sun. The man is wearing a handmade suit, and Olivia guesses that he's in his early 50s. The woman is much younger, in her 20s. She has short blonde hair and wears casual but expensive clothes. Olivia and Poppy walk in. "This is Daniel and Tamsin," says Martin. "Olivia and Poppy Streete, our legal team." They all shake hands. "Poppy," says Olivia, "would you and Tamsin like to go and chat somewhere? Daniel and I can stay here." She smiles at the man, and the young women head out of the room. "There's a coffee place 5 minutes away," says Tamsin. They head up towards Smithfield Market, where they buy chai lattes and sit outside on the pavement at a circular grey metal table in the sun. "We've been asked to explore the late Archie Blake's death and its consequences for the business," says Poppy. "Is it okay if I record our conversation?" "Of course." Poppy puts her phone down between them, and she starts the audio recorder. "Is that your dad we just met?" says Poppy. "Uncle," says Tamsin, and Poppy notices that the woman has deep brown eyes. "My dad's not in publishing anymore." "But he was in publishing in the past, was he?" says Poppy. "Until Grandpa died, yeah," she says. "When he died, they sold the company to the Blakes. That was the trigger for it. Uncle Daniel and Dad really didn't want to run it back then." "That was 10 years ago," says Poppy. "What's changed?" "It's different now because there's me and Gary. We want to run it." "Gary works there already," says Poppy. "We met him." "We're going to take it back. The new generation." "Are you and Gary siblings?" "Cousins. Uncle Daniel's his dad. There were 2 McCain sons, Daniel and my dad Richard. Daniel wants to help his son. That's why he's here. But I told my dad I didn't need his help. He's useless anyway. I'm stronger because he's weak. But Gary never had to build his potential, because his dad does everything for him." Tamsin's phone is face down on the table, and it rumbles. She checks the screen. "Gary's coming out to meet us here," she says. 5 minutes later, Gary appears along the street. When he sits on the third chair around the metal table, Poppy says to him, "When did you first decide you wanted to get into book publishing?" "My dad kept banging on about it when I was a teenager. I'm 24 now. We both are." He looks at Tamsin. "So we were 14 when Grandpa passed away. I had no idea what I wanted to do back then, but he was keen for us to get the company back." "Our dads had no choice back then," says Tamsin. "Grandpa left no spare cash, only the business. We needed money to live. Dad and Uncle Daniel liked the high life. Holidays, cars, yachts. All of that would have gone too. But now we want it back, and Martin bloody Blake is just dragging his feet." "Maybe he doesn't want to sell it," says Poppy. "He has to, Dad says. He hasn't got the skills. Archie Blake did all the work. Now he's gone. He's little Martin, lost in the fog." "Do you know anything about Archie Blake's death?" says Poppy. "Natural causes, wasn't it?" says Gary. "That's the official verdict. Doesn't surprise me. He was struggling with the job. And he'd never had to struggle in his life before. Born into wealth. He was pathetic. Scared of things, even animals." He screws up his features in disbelief. "A proper phobia type scared. Someone brought a lizard into the office once and he had to leave. Sweating and panicking was. It was weird." "Do you know if he was planning a holiday?" says Poppy. And Gary shakes his head. "It wasn't in his diary. And I know because they have a physical paper diary at work. It's a pain. I have to keep crossing stuff out. But Dad met him the day before he died," says Gary. "Dad wanted him to sell his shares to pressure Martin, but Archie said no. They'd be meeting every week. Dad gradually trying to convince him." In the offices, Daniel suggests that he and Olivia go up to the roof of the building to chat in more confidence, and they walk up 2 flights of stairs and reach a bolted door. He throws back the latches and they step out onto a flat area 30 feet square, with enormous potted olive trees, interspersed with giant lavender bushes. There's a square table with an umbrella in the centre, and they sit and both put on sunglasses. "Is Martin considering selling?" he says. "Is that why you invited me in?" "Can I ask you some questions first?" she says. "Tell me about the time when the 2 companies were joined." "Taken over, you mean?" "They took us over when Dad died." "And you were reluctant to sell?" He takes a deep breath in and out through his nose, as he considers the best way to explain what happened. "McCain's hadn't changed its approach for 100 years. It needed modernising, and the sale allowed that to happen. My brother was interested, and I had other things on. We took the money. McCain books needed gutting and all the old ways discarded. That's what the Blakes have done over the last 10 years, for which I'm grateful. Now the new McCain generation wants what was stolen from them." "Wasn't it a business deal that you signed? It wasn't stolen from the next generation," she says. "As you said yourself, you took the money." "My son Gary and my niece Tamsin see it differently. Publishing's in their blood." "Have you adopted a plan to take back control?" says Olivia. "To undermine the Blakes?" "We made an offer to Martin. The company has access to good credit that we'd use," says Daniel. "Without Archie, he's weakened. Martin's like a damaged member of the herd, and we can pick him off." "You don't like the Blakes?" says Olivia.
"Only because they stole our company. Nothing personal."
"What do you know about Archie's death?" she says.
"He was a weak man too."
"That wasn't my question," she says.
"I don't know anything about his death."
Daniel adjusts his sunglasses on his face.
"He was drifting and his heart just gave up. That's typical of the Blakes. No staying power."
"Are there people inside the combined business who used to work for you?"
"Of course, all the good ones in Blake McCain came from our side. And they're still there, so the new business will be strong. The dead wood has all been torn away to leave a solid core."
Olivia decides to light the blue touch paper and see if there's an explosion. "Martin thinks that his brother was murdered," she says. "He's employed me to find out the truth." Daniel laughs and shakes his head.
"He's crazy. Martin can't run the place on his own. He needs better management, better leadership. My family can provide that. He needs to name his price and walk out of the door, leaving the business to the adults."
Her phone hums in her pocket, and she checks the screen. "It's my daughter, excuse me," she says. "We'll catch up later." Olivia stands and walks back inside. Poppy has messaged her mother, and the girl has attached an audio recording of her discussion with Tamsin and Gary. Olivia stands in the light of the stairs and listens to the conversation. Then she searches for anything online that relates to the McCains and the Blakes over the last 2 years. Then she descends back to the heart of the building to find Martin. He has a corner office overlooking Brissett Street, where a steady flow of local workers pass by. In the room is a desk at one end and a meeting table for 8 at the other. Martin's on the phone and Olivia sits at Gary's desk, that is outside of Martin's office. The meeting diary for Martin is on the desk and she flicks through the last few weeks. This diary had been for both Archie and Martin, she can see. Olivia looks up through the glass and Martin has finished his call, so she opens the door. "I have some questions," she says. "Come in, shut the door." She drops onto a white leather and chrome chair in front of his desk. "The McCains are certainly intent on taking the company back," she begins. "They made you an offer, is that right?"
"Daniel threatened me," says Martin, "but I suspect that's the same thing in the world of the McCains."
"What do you plan to do now that your brother is no longer here to run the business with you?"
"Nothing. Keep running Blake McCain. Although I'm going to change the name to Blake Publishing now. Archie was always against the idea, but I have carte blanche. So I've decided. We'll pivot back to all non-fiction."
"Isn't that a waste of your investment?" says Olivia. "You paid for the imprints and reputation that McCain had with their fiction audience."
"I'm in charge now, so it's an executive decision."
She pauses, then says, "Tell me about the last few days of Archie's life. Was he behaving oddly at all, or planning a holiday?"
"He wasn't in the office much the day before, only half an hour maybe. I went in to talk to him when he got in, and Gary was in his office. As soon as I opened the door, they looked guilty and stopped talking."
"And you didn't ask them why?" she says.
"Not then. I was going to visit him later at home in the evening, but he was dead by then."
"How did you find out that he died?" she says.
"I got a call from the police. I know a couple of officers in the local police station. They must have recognized the surname when they identified the body."
Through the glass sides of the office, Martin's attention is suddenly diverted, and a second later, Daniel storms into the room.
"You think we killed him?"
he says loudly. Martin remains unnervingly calm in the face of Daniel's attack.
"Your father?" "Yes, I do," says Martin. "What? I meant Archie," says Daniel. "Your tame lawyer here told me you think I killed your brother."
The men both look at Olivia. "Well, the truth will out, gentlemen," she says. "Martin, tell me what you just said about the death of old man McCain. You didn't mention that to me earlier."
"Their father was old, but ruled with a rod of iron. It was well known in the world of publishing. The 2 sons desperately wanted to control the business, but old man McCain would have none of it. He had a heart attack just like Archie. They killed their father, stepped away from the business so as not to make it look suspicious, then killed Archie in the same way, to take back what they see as rightfully theirs. Daniel told you that, didn't he? That it's rightfully theirs?"
"He did," says Olivia, and she looks at Daniel, who is calmer now. "How did your father die?"
"It was a heart attack. But he was nearly 90. He wasn't going to keep going forever."
Outside of the room, Poppy, Gary, and Tamsin all arrive, and Olivia beckons them in. "Could everyone sit down?" she says. Olivia stands at one end of the meeting table. "I thought it best to have an open discussion about the death of Archie Blake, because Poppy and I have talked to everyone in this room, and not all of the information aligns." She looks at the faces around the table. "Archie Blake did not die of natural causes," she begins. He died of a phidiophobia, a mortal fear of snakes. We found a dead snake under the sofa in his flat. There's no logical explanation for that, apart from someone placed it there to scare him. Someone who knew he had the phobia. He was a nervous type of man, as you've all said. Not self-assured, but he was also under pressure. She flicks her eyes to Daniel. The McCain family have been leading what I might label as a campaign to attain control of the combined Blake-McCain publishing company. 10 years ago, old man McCain died, but left no cash. Just the business. The two sons at the time saw no value in keeping it, and indeed needed the money. They lived a glamorous life, as the sons of a successful businessman. But the McCain company had debts, and to retain their jet-set life, the only option was to sell the business. Wind time on to the last couple of years, and the next generation has grown up. She looks at Tamsin and Gary, sitting next to each other. Their father and uncle, Daniel, has spun a story to them that makes the McCains appear powerful and strong, and the Blakes weak and ineffective. In this story, the only natural step must be to take back their heritage. But that's a false narrative, continues Olivia. I found a court record buried online to say that you, Daniel, were nearly bankrupt a year ago. I think you still overspend your money, and you need the business back to give you access to cash and credit lines. Martin is smiling now, and Daniel looks uncomfortable. But that's nothing to do with the death of Archie Blake. He did it, I told you, says Martin. Archie had been meeting Daniel regularly for 2 months. There are notes in the diary on Gary's desk that show the agenda for those discussions. They were meetings where Daniel was trying to convince Archie to sell him his shares in the business, and for Daniel to become a director. She pauses. You knew that, didn't you, Martin? He pretends to look concerned. You knew that Archie was going to sell, that Daniel would take the shares and use the company's credit facility to fund the transaction. You had to stop him, didn't you? You also knew from childhood that Archie had a mortal fear of snakes, and you had keys to his flat. You planted the snake, and his heart attack was triggered by the shock. There's no proof, says Martin. They did it. The police will be able to trace the purchase of a snake from somewhere, I suspect. There'll be a sales invoice or an image of you on a shop camera somewhere. Poppy said to me as soon as we'd met that you seemed obsessed by the McCains, and that obsession drove you to blame them for the death of Archie. But without any detail about how they did it, just a vague idea. And that is always a clear sign of fabrication. Not enough detail because a lie needs to be as complex as real life to be effective, she says. And maybe you would have realized that if your passion had been for fiction. No one else speaks now, until Olivia says, Can you call the police, Poppy? The Street Files, a complete mystery short story, every Wednesday.